Good afternoon. I would like to thank you all for coming to our presentation today to go over the firefighter training division and some of the current problems that we're facing, as well as some of the proposed solutions. At the end of our presentation, I would very much like to hear any input that you may have, do my best to answer any questions that you may have as well. But in saying that, let's go ahead and get started. Some of the current problems that we have noted in training over the last couple of years are identified in three specific areas. Is the overall inadequacy of the training, the need for additional staff, as well as the need for career path development or career path mentoring. Some of our current statistics tell us that with having a current influx of calls, and these aren't just fire specific, they're EMS related, emergency medical services related, as well as hazardous materials related. So we really need to begin wrapping our minds around encompassing an all hazards approach to training. As you can see, in 2014, the call volume was roughly around 2,500 calls that year, and now in 2017 we're projected to have over 4,800 calls. So nearly doubled in just a few short year time span. Also, this lends itself to the need in additional staff. While we maintain sufficient coverage on three-man engine companies and three-man truck companies, we need to really evaluate some of the organizational flow, if you will, when it comes to the needs of our staff. And you can see that having three well-trained firefighters on a specific apparatus can save potential insurance customers, meaning business owners and residents, up to $600,000 per person. So you see the economic impact of having a well-trained firefighting force in order to meet those demands and the rise of our call volume. And lastly, you'll note on this chart that career path development, while we've been maintaining the state mandated hours to keep our certifications, we've been maintaining it on the low end, and we want to pick that up because we want to raise the bar of our service. While we implemented a specific training officer that was on shift, he wasn't a staff officer, he was a shift officer. Our training hours logged went up, but when the position was taken away from him and he was promoted to battalion chief, the decline in the hours logged went down significantly to the rate of about 2,000 hours per year, and that's pretty significant whenever you're talking the size of our department and the hours that are needed to be logged. So a 2,000 hour shift definitely changes the dynamics and potentially the quality of our training. But identifying these problems, we got together with some of the senior staff, some of the newer staff, as well as our chiefs, and we kind of identified some of the problems some of the solutions to the identified problems. One of the solutions is that we should evaluate our current organizational flow. The problem that we've identified there is that our Deputy Chief of Operations has undertaken not only the overseer, if you will, of our training, but he's also the facilitator of our training. Now, anyone knows that in a metro department, there's a significant demand on our deputy chief's time, or any deputy chief for that matter, his time. And in order to adequately train our staff, we need to have a specific facilitator in place that isn't the deputy chief, and he does a wonderful job. However, he has a full plate. So in saying that he has a full plate, we ought to look at the avenues of potentially doing some reorganization of our flow chart and implementing a staff facilitator of training, or training officer. In doing that, what we believe that we'll achieve is seeing a better continuity in training. You won't have three specific or three shifts training on three different topics. And then as we go back to our computer-based training that shows continuity across the board, and some of our EMS and fire training, it lacks the hands-on aspect. And having a staff training officer will be able to incorporate and intertwine that computer-based training into a hands-on approach, as well as alleviating some of that extra workload off of our deputy chief. And while he'll still be the primary overseer, he'll have someone under him as facilitator, and to be able to report back to him how the training's going and things of that nature. Secondly, we would need to look at implementing changes to our current standard operating procedures and our guidelines. While our procedures are more specific and lack latitude, our standard operating guidelines allow us a little more latitude in how we approach things. While we, as a department, have both SOPs and SOGs, we look at having updating the organizational flow into those new SOPs and SOGs, and during the process of this implementation, we need to give ourselves a little latitude to see exactly how this is going to go, a grace period, if you will. But we need to look at updating the changes in our standard operating procedures and standard operating guidelines. Also, we see the need to implement changes to current job descriptions, meaning that as it stands right now, we have on each vehicle we have a firefighter, which is either a EMT or a paramedic, and this goes for all the positions due to us providing ALS coverage to the city. Specific training toward those jobs as firefighters, drivers, and a officer, which is a sergeant and or a lieutenant. So company officers on their level need to have training on how to be company officers and how to be better company officers. Experience tells us that whenever you arrive on the scene and you're a company officer, the manner that you establish command and a command presence sets the tempo for the duration of the call, and it helps fill those organizational needs, or organizational mission rather, of preservation of life and property. And so if we can have those organizational objectives ingrained in each one of these positions of life preservation and property preservation, whether it be an EMS call, a fire call, a hazardous materials call, we'll know how to properly prioritize those organizational objectives into everything that we do. So, and it goes for EMTs and paramedics, as well as the firefighters, the drivers. Drivers need specific training as well to on pumping trucks, raising and lowering ladders. So each one of these positions have very detailed descriptions. However, in these detailed descriptions, we need to incorporate training for that specific position. So we definitely want to look at implementing changes to not only the job descriptions, but job-specific training as well. And one of the last proposed solutions that that we as a team brought up was implementing a specific career path and development and mentorship program. The National Fire Academy recommends that anyone that is an officer, such as our company officers, our sergeants or lieutenants, whenever they're off, the FAO or fire apparatus operator rides up into that next position. And in our mentorship program, what we want to wrap our minds around is the person above in rank teaching their job to the person that fills in when they're off. And the National Fire Academy makes that recommendation as well. And having this specific career path development, we know that some of these drivers want to make company officers, and it should be a company's officer desire to mentor those FAOs and FAOs to relief drivers and so on. And you see that chain of progression happen. And not only that, but we want to embrace that as an organization. We want to have that mentorship and that progression in career path development. And here's the thing, is not everybody in the fire service desires to be the chief. Not everyone in the fire service desires to be a company officer. Some are perfectly content with being firefighters. And we want our paramedics or EMTs, and we want to encourage that. It takes all different kinds of attitudes and mentalities in the fire service to make the world go round, if you will. So if a firefighter wants to become a driver and that's where he wants to spend the duration of his career, we want to make that happen, and we want to make sure that that person is happy in that position. Some firefighters or our officers desire to be fire marshals, and we want to encourage that career path, and we want to implement what's needed to make that happen, whether it be schooling, allowing time off for schooling, as long as we are able to meet organizational objectives and goals in maintaining staffing and things like of that nature to ensure that we have happy employees. These employees are the ones that go out and are serving our stakeholders in their time of need. So we want to ensure that they're doing that well, and we want to ensure that we as an organization are doing everything that we can to increase our services to our firefighters to make sure that they in turn are providing a good quality customer service and patient advocacy to the stakeholders, residents, business owners of our city. Thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions at the end, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.